Hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another episode of Talking About Music Stuff with Juan. We're talking about, you guessed it, rhythm, that we define as the flow of music through time or the particular organization of sound durations in a piece of music. If we want to describe or to understand how the sound durations are organized in a piece of music, we pretty much need to know three things. First, where is the beat? You need to feel that beat and figure out where it is. Once you know that, it's useful to know how multiple beats group and how each beat subdivides. So that's all you need to know. Where is the beat? Number one, how multiple beats group and how each one of those beats is subdivided. In order to get a little more technical, let's talk about some of the terms that we used in order to describe these characteristics of rhythm. When we're talking about grouping, we refer to the meter, and that is how multiple beats are organized into groups. And each one of these groups is going to be a measure. If each group, aka measure, has 2 beats, we call it duple. If it has 3 beats, we call it triple. And if it has 4 beats, we call it quadruple. If we want to talk about the subdivision, all we want to find out is whether each beat is subdivided by 2s or by 3s. If it's subdivided by 2s, we call it simple. If it's subdivided by 3, we call it compound. So really, all that a time signature does is just tell us these three things. The duration of the beat, the grouping of the beat, and it tells us the subdivision of the beat. But you don't have to take my word for it. Let's go and review some of the time signatures that we've talked about. Let's start with Juan's Platonic time signature. Guys, that name has not grown on me very well. I'm not sure I like it anymore. But for now, that's what we're stuck with. So let's talk about Juan's Platonic time signatures. If you see a time signature like this one, you can know all those things. By knowing the top number, you can know the number of beats in a measure, also known as the grouping. By knowing the bottom number, you know which rhythmic value represents one beat, so you get the beat. And by examining closely the bottom number, you get to know whether the subdivision is simple or compound. If the bottom number is a regular duration value, so any of these, it's simple because that's a duration that subdivides easily by 2. If the duration value is dotted, so any of these, you know that is compound because dotted durations subdivide easily into 3. This is why it would be so convenient if we could write time signatures like this. There's no way to get confused. Everything is so clear. The number of beats, the subdivision of the beat, who gets the beat. All of these things are very easy to understand from a time signature written like this, which is why a lot of children books, for example, use these sort of time signatures for kids who are just starting to read music. But anyway, we know that that is not the case. We know that people use real time signatures and not the Platonic time signatures. So we need to figure out how to transfer from one to the other. Let's start with simple notations. If I want to figure out the real time signature of a measure that has 2 beats and in which each beat lasts for a quarter note, that's easy. I just take the number of beats and move it right the same. And then I just change the duration number for the number that represents it. In this case, a quarter note will represent with a 4. This is how we will represent a simple duple time in which each beat was represented by a quarter note. In this one, I have 3 beats per measure, and each beat lasts for a whole note, and we represent the whole note with number 1. This would be a time signature in which each measure would have 3 beats and each beat would last for a whole note. It is the same with the next example. This is a quadruple time signature, so it has 4 beats per measure, and the number that we use to represent 8 notes, it's number 8. This is how we will write that time signature. In real time signatures, when we're representing simple subdivisions, whether they are duple, triple, or quadruple, the top number shows us how many beats are in a measure, also known as the grouping of the beats, and the bottom number still tells us what is the rhythmic value that represents one beat. However, if we're trying to use this system and we want to explain compound time signatures, so those in which each beat subdivides by 3, we have a problem. What is it? Let's say that we want to convert this time signature. One that is duple, it has 2 bits per measure, but each one of those bits subdivides by 3. How do we know that it subdivides by 3? Because this is a dotted duration. We have the 2 representing the number of bits. What should I put on the bottom? What do you think? 4 and a half, because it's a dotted quarter note. 4 plus 8, because it's the equivalent of a quarter note plus an 8 note. 8 plus 8 plus 8, because it is the same as having 3 8 notes. So this comes with a lot of problems. This comes with trouble. This doesn't seem like a good way to represent compound time signatures. So this is how we do it. Since there is no number for the value that gets the bit, we need to find something that we have a number for. So we go for the subdivision. We know that each dotted quarter note is equivalent to 3 8 notes, and we do have a number to represent the 8 note. So in order to translate a Platonic signature into a real-time signature, we take the value not of the bit, but of the subdivision, and we put it here. Now, to figure out the top number, since this Platonic time signature is telling us that each measure is going to have 2 dotted quarter notes, then I can just do the math. If there is 2 dotted quarter notes and each one is subdivided into 3 8 notes, then at the end, the total amount of 8 notes that I have is 6. And that is where the top number of a compound time signature comes from. So this is how a time signature looks on a piece in which each measure has 2 beats and each one lasts for a dotted quarter note that is subdivided into 3. If we have a time signature that looks like this, we will use the value of the subdivision. We do have a number for this, so we would just take this 4 and put it here. And since we know that each dotted half note is subdivided into 3 and that we have 3 of those, we know that the total amount of quarter notes that we would have in that measure, it's 9. So then we can just take that 9 and put it up here. So this is how we would notate a time signature that has 3 bits in which each bit is represented by a dotted half note and subdivides by 3. One more for fancies. We know that each dotted whole note subdivides into 3 half notes. We do have a number for this, and the number for a half note is 2. So now we know what the bottom part of this time signature will be. We also know that each measure has 4 of these dotted whole notes. So the total number of half notes or of subdivisions on this bar would be 12. We take this 12, we put it on the bottom part of the time signature, and here it is. This is how we notate the time signature of a piece in which each measure has 4 beats and each beat lasts for a dotted whole note that is subdivided into 3. That's a lot of information, I know, but we're experts on it now. So now we know how to convert Platonic compound time signatures into real time signatures. And this is the reason why compound time signatures look a little different on the page. The top number is not showing us the number of bits in a measure. In a compound time signature, the top number is showing us the total number of subdivisions, not the number of bits. And the bottom number shows us the rhythmic value of the subdivision, not of the bit. So when we're talking about simple time signatures, we can remember that the top number will always be 2 for duple, 3 for triple, and 4 for quadruple. But when we're talking about compound signatures, the top number will always be 6 for duple, 9 for triple, and 12 for quadruple. So good, so now the last thing that we need is, if we see a real-time signature, can we transfer it to a Platonic signature? The first thing is that we need to recognize that if the top number is 2, 3, or 4, we're talking about a simple time signature. And once we know that, converting a simple time signature, it's pretty simple. You know that the number 2 is used to represent a half note. So you just replace it by the rhythmic value that it represents, and then the number of beats is the same. Then you need to learn to recognize that if the top number is 6, 9, or 12, we're talking about compound time signatures. So once you know that, you just reverse the process. We know that the bottom number of a compound time signature is showing us the subdivision of the beat. And since it is compound, we know that the beat is going to be a rhythmic value that is equal to 3 of these subdivisions. What is equal to 3 half notes? A dotted whole note. So I know that that is going to be the duration of the beat. Now, if I want to know how many beats are there, I just do the math. Since I know that there are 12 half notes on a measure, I know that that is the equivalent of having 4 dotted whole notes. So there it is. Now I know the number of beats in that measure. I know that this is a time signature in which every measure has 4 beats, and each beat is a dotted whole note that is in turn subdivided into 3 half notes. So hopefully you can see what is different about compound time signatures. The bottom number here is showing you the value of the subdivision, while in the platonic time signature, the bottom symbol will always show you the value of the beat, which is a lot simpler to understand. Here's a trick that you can use in order to do this a little faster. 6 is always going to be compound duple. 9 is always going to be compound triple. And 12 is always going to be compound quadruple. So if I see something that looks like this, I know immediately that 9 means that it's going to have 3 beats, that it's going to be triple. And since I know that a 16 note is the subdivision and that each beat is going to have 3 of these, I know that my beat is going to be a dotted 8. So I can take this and put it on the bottom part, which is the one that tells me the value of the beat. So I think this is all for this one. Have fun with the assignment and let me know if you have any questions. See you Monday. Bye bye.